And today I'm going to be sharing with you the work and process that went into upgrading the current data store application, that is its UI and code base, into a more modern and scalable version of itself. I'll start with what the data store is and how you can use it, and how you can access it via the current application in terms of its functionality and stuff. Then I'll go into the activities that took place during the design and development process. So let's get into it. First off, what is the data store? It's a JSON key value store where you can keep any kind of data about your application and for your application, and you can access it through the API. There are two kinds of data stores that are supported. First off, we have the global data store, which is available to every user of that DHIS2 instance. And then we have the user data store, which is only accessible to a particular user that's logged into the instance. Each data store contains namespaces, and a namespace is just a collection of key value pairs. Each key contains a value, and the value can be any form of JSON data. Now, an app can reserve a namespace, but that's an optional thing. And a user's access to that reserved namespace is dependent on their access to that application. If they do not have read and write access to the application, they won't be able to see or use that namespace. One of the use cases for the data store is, there are very many, but one of them could be like if you are want to save your configuration and settings for your application. This could be anything really. For example, if you're setting up your app for the first time and you needed to save like maybe the default configuration or the app metadata, it could be things like the version of the app that you have installed, or the installation date, that sort of thing. It could also be like settings that you keep updating with time. For example, if you have things like the synchronization period, you could change that from weekly to daily if that's something that's needed. These are just examples. And that update and retrieval process will be happening between your application and the data store. So how can you interact with some of these data store features visually? We do have a core application called the Data Store Management App, and it was built around 8 years ago. It only supports the global data store. And in terms of its setup, the user interface was built using the Material UI library, but that is now severely out of date. State management is handled using the Redux library, and we fetch data from the back end using the now deprecated D2 library. I'm going to go into a demo of the current application so that we are all familiar with what it looks like and what it does. So let me do that. This is the page for the data store, the current data store application. You can easily access that by going here to the apps menu icon and looking for the data store management app, which is that one right there. And when you click it, it brings you here to its web page. We have the namespaces from the global data store loaded into the left-hand panel. And then on the right-hand side, we have space for the editor where all the information will be displayed, as we shall see. you have to be aware that the information, all the data that you see in the application right now is only from the global data store, even though that is not indicated in the application at all. When you click on a namespace, we have its keys rendered just below it. And this also poses an issue already, because if a namespace had a large number of keys, say 100 or so, that means all 100 keys will have to be rendered just below it. And that would prove very hard to find a key that you actually want. And the other thing is you actually move all the other namespaces from your current field of view. When you click on a key, its value data is rendered in the editor on the right-hand side. And there are two views available for the code editor. We have the tree view that shows you a condensed version of all the value data in the form of compressed nodes. And when you click on a node to expand it is when you can see what is contained therein. If I choose another one, this one has a number of collapsed nodes. So clicking on them shows you what is contained. And the other view is the code view, which is essentially a JSON format of the value data. So some of the other functionality that we have within the application, you're able to edit the value data directly within the editor. You fill in whatever you want to fill in, and you click save when you are done. For the other functionality like creating and deleting, you have to sort of know what to touch or what it already does in order to be able to use it. For example, if I wanted to add a new namespace, that's what this blue button is for. Click that, and I feed in the name of the new namespace name and the new key, click create, and that will be added to the list of namespaces here, right? But if I wanted to add a new key to a particular namespace, then I have to go to the options menu for a particular namespace that I want the key added to. For example, if I wanted it added to the Android settings, click on that options menu, click on the key, fill in the new key name, and click create, and it will be added to its list of keys. If I wanted to delete an entire namespace and all its keys, I just have to click on the delete action, confirm that, and it will be erased. If I want to delete a key, I have to go to its options menu, click on delete, confirm that I actually do want to delete that particular key within that namespace, and it will be deleted. The other functionality would be searching through the namespaces and the keys. So there's a bit of syntax to this one. If I wanted a particular namespace that is quite easy, say analytics. So I have the analytics namespace being brought up. If I wanted one of the keys inside analytics, then I have to add the hash symbol to the namespace and then type in the key name, what I want, in this case, settings, and then I'll be able to get, the key that I actually do want. This is the basic functionality of the current data store application. Now, while this app does a lot of things right, there are some things that we felt could be better. For example, let's start off with the way it looks. It's not really consistent with the rest of the applications we have in our lineup of apps, given its look and feel. There are some features that are not very intuitive to the user and would want to make that better. It also doesn't give us enough room to add any of the new features that we would want to add without cluttering up the entire space. So moving back to the reasons that we wanted to do the upgrade, like on top of all the ones that are given, we do have some new API features that we want to appear within the application itself. Calling them new is quite relative since they've been around since version 38 and we're currently running version 41, but they were never included in the UI and we want to do that now. So one of the features is the filtering feature, where we are able to return data that matches a specific criterion. Then we have the value extraction feature, where we return specific fields within the values of each key in a namespace. Then we definitely want to be able to return data according to the page size and page number. Then the ability to sort the data by a specific field, and that could be ascending order or descending order. The last feature is the sharing settings. This one has been available for a very long time, just never included in the user interface. And this is where you give read and write access to a particular set of users or user groups. The other reason for the upgrade is we want to add support for the user data store, not just the global data store, have both of them, and the user can choose which one they want to make use of at the time. Then we definitely wanted an updated look of the user interface, as well as a better user experience, something that can accommodate the new features and any future ones that we may think of, as well as just overall making it consistent with the rest of the applications that we have. Then the code base itself, as I talked about earlier, has a lot of deprecated and out-of-date libraries. So we wanted something that is more up-to-date, more current, with faster libraries that are well-maintained and will provide a better user experience, a better developer experience. Some of them are in-house tools like the app platform that Kai talked about earlier, and the DHIS2 UI library. And I'll get more into how I use those later on. Then another consideration was upgrading the routing library that we use, which is the React router library. And for that one, it has a lot of nice features, including you could set the layout of the page, and it has a placeholder component called the outlet. So each time the URL changes, you are able to render the necessary child component while the layout stays the same. So that was a good thing with the newer version of the React router. So what went into the development and design process? It was a collaboration between the design and development teams. And one of the first things we considered was what the current application is like in terms of the code base and the UI. So that included things like taking note of its functionality and the gaps that it has, checking to see if the current UI could integrate new features and give space for future ones without compromising the user experience. And lastly, if we could work with the current code base, just upgrade the libraries and integrate the new functionality while keeping it maintainable. Now, like I said, this app is quite old, and they do say the moment you write code, it's already legacy code. This one is 8 years of code. We found the application to be quite old, dated look, quite unscalable. And so our verdict was to just start afresh, modernize the entire application. That is, give it a new look and a new code base. That takes me into steps 2 and 3, which were the design discussions and the prototyping phase. Now, these 2 steps were quite iterative. The design and development teams sat down and had deliberate design discussions. And our considerations about the new UI design was we wanted something that could support both data stores and that could allow integration of the current functionality, the new features that we want added, and gives us room for any others that could come up at some point. So the 2 initial designs the design team came up with were the 3-panel UI and the single page layout. That takes me to the prototyping phase. I built out the basic functionality of these 2 designs so that we could fully assess and weigh the merits of both designs practically. And I did this using some of our in-house tools. For example, I'll start with version 12 of the app platform that Kai mentioned, and he talked about all the good things it comes with. It's built with Git, and it supports, you're able to build a new application with a TS template. So development and building of the fresh new application was done with version 12 of the app platform. And because I'm using TypeScript for its features like type safety, I made use of the TypeScript template as well. And so I did not have to do any of the boilerplate configuration of setting up a TypeScript app on my own. I just got into that. So that was a win on my end. And then the rest of the runtime actions, like the data fetching, the error handling, and the loading indicators and stuff, are done by the app runtime, which is also another tool we maintain. And so we're doing away with the D2 library. It's no longer in maintenance mode. So the app runtime does a very good job of handling that bit for us. To create the UIs, the different UIs, they have different components layered in there. But what made it quite fast to prototype and give results was making use of DHIS2 UI library. It already has the components built out, so it was a matter of plugging in what is needed for the different layouts to be able to compare them effectively. And the good thing about this is that most of our applications make use of the DHIS2 UI library. So what you are getting is a consistent user experience across the entire suite of apps we offer as DHIS2. Using all these tools helped me build the UIs very fast. That is the 3-panel UI and the single page layout. It helped with the deliberations we had between the design team and the development team. And with that, the design team was able to come up with a final user interface design that married the winning sides of the 2 initial ones. And this was made possible by when we were able to test out how efficient both designs were in practice. All this was done in like a space of 3 weeks, which is quite fast to be able to get something that will work for us. And we definitely hope that this is the final design, and we'll get into what that looks like. So let's look at all the different designs and what we finally came up with and how it works. The first one that we considered was the 3-panel UI design. As you can see, it's one page with 3 panels on it, and it retains a bit of the design that the current application has. We have the left-hand panel with all the namespaces from a selected data store. That is definitely something that we had added. So you could easily choose which data store you want to work with from the segmented control above. And when you click on a namespace, we have the keys rendered in the second panel, which is quite similar to the first one. This is different from the current UI where all the keys were listed just below. And clicking on a key within the namespace would render its data in the editor on the right. The good thing about this UI, like I mentioned, is that you have everything laid out in front of you. You do not have to navigate anywhere else. Whatever you want, you see on the page, and you can use it and access it. The downside to this is that it still doesn't give us room for all that other functionality that we want added, things like the filtering and pagination. Now, the next design, which is the single page layout, actually catered for that problem. It gave us all the room that we wanted, with each of the core features having their own page. So we have the namespaces from a selected data store appearing on the first page. Then clicking on a namespace in a data store, clicking on a namespace in a data store takes you to the second page, which has its keys listed out in a table. Clicking on a key will take you to the third page, which is its value data in the editor. This layout gave us as much room as we wanted. However, there's a loss of context as you navigate throughout the application. You have to mentally be aware of where you are within the app. Am I looking at the value data? Am I looking at the keys? Am I looking at the namespace? The namespaces page and the keys page are quite similar, so you need to be aware of where you are. So that led us into the final design, the 2-page layout. The 2-page layout, like I mentioned, marries the two initial designs, and we get something that works in a way that we would want it to. I'll go into a demo of what that looks like. So here we are. It's called the 2-page layout because we have 2 pages. This is the first page with all the namespaces in a left-aligned table. And then we have the second page, which contains a table of all the keys within a particular namespace and the editor where the valid data will appear. So you're able to choose whichever data store you want to use. In this case, we have all the namespaces from the global data store automatically loaded. It's the default data store. But if you wanted to choose the user data store, you could just select on that tab and we have that, and we have its namespaces rendered. You're able to create a new namespace within whichever data store you have selected. So for this, I will create a new one. Let's say test and key. My namespace is called the test, and yeah, my key is called key. I add that, and it redirects us to the next page where we have the keys laid out and the editor. To be able to add the valid data for a particular key, just select on that, and you can feed in the information that you want about that particular key. So in this case, this is what I want added to that. Save changes. And so now this is the value for this particular key. I'm also able to add a new key to a particular namespace, and it's quite obvious because of the button that appears up there. Let me call this one key 2 and add that. It appears there. If I wanted to add information there, so sorry. Yeah, and then save those changes. If I made changes to this and change my mind about them, you're able to close the editor. You'll get an alert asking you to confirm that you want to discard these changes. You confirm that. So it still contains the previous information since you didn't want to make any changes to that. The other functionality that we could have, that we do have, is you're able to delete particular keys by just clicking on the particular actions for the particular icons for the action that you want. If you want to delete that key, click on that. You have a model asking you to confirm that, and you delete. If I wanted to be able to delete an entire namespace, I would go back to the list of all the namespaces in the data store and click on the delete icon. It asks for confirmation that I actually do want to delete the namespace and all its keys, and I delete that. The other functionality is you're able to search through the namespaces and keys. Now, because the namespaces and keys are rendered separately, you do not need any syntax for any of that. Type in analytics, you have analytics. Click on analytics. If I wanted the set objects, easy to type into that. So the winning thing, the good thing about this particular design is that it still gives us room for those other features that we want. If we wanted to add the filtration and the pagination and the sharing settings, we have enough room for that. If we had other features that we wanted to add in future as they came up, the design still gives us room for any of those implementations that we would want. So this is it with the current user interface, the one that we are considering for the new data store application. If you have any comments about it, improvements or feedback, please feel free to comment about that. So we get back into the presentation. What is new about it? It's still the same functionality, just with a better user interface and a better user experience, definitely. It's definitely more intuitive to the user. We have all the different actions accessible to the user at any point. The look itself is quite fresh and consistent with our other applications, and it's scalable as well. We have both data stores supported, which is also a good thing. And the other features that we are considering are the sharing settings. We already have the icon for that, so it's on its way as well, like being able to restrict access to particular user groups for namespaces and keys. Then the API features that we talked about earlier, and those will be included when and as needed as we go along. Then we are also looking at adding a downloads feature to be able to allow users to download the namespace data or keys data as files, and that could be in a CSV format or JSON format. We hope to have this version of the data store available with the version 42 release. That will be a good thing. One of the things that we removed from what is available in the current application is the tree view. If that is something that people still want, you could let us know, and we'll see if we can have that integrated back. However, for now, we did not see if it's something that people want kept. If you still want it, please do comment. Please do let us know. And that brings me to the end. If you want to see the implementation of how we use the different tools, this is available on the beta branch of the data store, and you can basically just look at how we use the different libraries and how we did the setup for the different things, how we use the different components to build out the UI. The other UIs are also, the other implementations for the other UIs are also available within the data store code base repository, and you can check that out. You can share your feedback about the data store application, how you used it, what we may not have considered via the community of practice and in the comments below as well. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone that has been involved and is involved in the upgrading of the data store application.